Okay, now
Ah.
we are live.
I have to repeat myself, so we didn't have anybody in.
Yeah, you might have to repeat yourself.
Yeah. That was a good spot for Lars. Okay, welcome everybody. I believe we've let everybody in now and started the meeting. So my name is Lisa Beverly-Jones. Welcome to our WEDUSEA webinar this morning on marine spatial planning and consenting. A few housekeeping pieces from myself, but then I will pass over to Professor Lars Johanning from University of Plymouth. So this morning, with attendees, we're going to keep people on mute and cameras off. I think that's already set up through the webinar function. Just to let everybody know that this meeting is being recorded at the moment, and it will be made available as part of our webinar series on our WEDUSEA website. We will also handle any questions through the chat function on Teams webinar. So if people have any questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to enter them, and we will pick those up at the end of the presentations when we've allotted some time at the end. Okay, I'll pass over now to Professor Lars Johanning from University of Plymouth.
Okay, good morning everyone. I hope you see my screen now. My name is Lars Johanning. I'm a professor of ocean technology at the University of Plymouth, as Lisa was saying. I will give a short introduction to the WEDUSEA project, but it's not about me. We have three important speakers, so I will pass over to them shortly after. Okay. So the WEDUSEA seminar series today is the title of Marine Spatial Planning and Consenting. The WEDUSEA project overall is a demonstration project. We manufacturing and deploying O30 floating OE buoy there, a wave energy device, OWC conversion system. Duration 6 years. Started in September 22, and we will complete in 2028. It's a European funded project. It's got a 19.6 million funding from the EU Horizon funding, but also partly funded by Innovate UK. In total, we have 14 organizations from Ireland, UK, France, Germany, and Spain. The OE technology is a world-leading technology with a capacity floating wave energy device developed by Ocean Energy, and we got also Brian here in the team there. It operates by using oscillating water column to drive turbines generating electricity from wave motions. Design and build. We have tailored the device for the site at the EMEC site. We have now procured components, and we will go into the full manufacturing fairly soon and expecting a deployment in spring, summer next year. This is a pre-commercial deployment. So we have a power cable attached to the device. We will generate power, and we will also monitor all the data in terms of power generation, but also the environmental condition, and of course loads on the devices and the subcomponents. As said, we will deploy next year. Just quickly, at the cruise site up there in Orkney. Most of you probably will be aware of. So north up in the UK, the Orkney Islands, various devices have been deployed up at this EMEC site. One, of course, was a Palamis, one of the first one. So the WE30 buoy will be the next one really to be deployed there. This really it for me as a short introduction to the WEDUSEA project. Let's come to the program. So the first speaker is Amya Pundit from UCC. She will talk on the design, flexibility, and consenting, a comparison of policy framework for development of offshore renewables, and the need for design flexibility. Amelia, the floor is yours. I will stop sharing.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Professor Lars. So I will be talking about a comparison which we have been made at University College Cork. So this is a part of our previous work. As a result of which this comparison, I will at the end give some kind of recommendation whether we need to evolve the policy framework and what changes could be included in order to uh, streamline or make a robust framework for installing the offshore renewable energy. So as you can see, this is the example for some of the wave energy converters. So the source has been collected from Moore Energy Lab, Polytechnic di Torino. So on my left, we have point absorber and then the oscillating water column and then the balls type. So these um, wave energy converters can either be installed or embedded to the seabed, or they can be either floating. So if they are floating for their stabilization, mooring cables have been used. And if it is fixed, some kind of arrangement or some embody body is been fixed to the grounds or to the ocean bed. Now, as we know, the ocean is um, endless is able to produce endless amount of renewable energy, but there are certain challenges that because of those challenges at the since we are at the end of 2025, so meeting the net zero carbon emission by 2030 seems really challenging. So is it the perfect renewable energy? Can we say that the offshore renewable energy such as the wave, tidal, and others, the floating solar, are perfect renewable energy in order to counteract the traditional fossil fuels? Might be yes. So this is one of the example how the offshore wind turbine substation look like, and some of the offshore wind turbines are. So the diagram here basically shows here the noise production generated during the installation of fixed type offshore wind turbines. Now, fixed type offshore wind turbines have been commercialized because it has some expertise coming from the oil and gas sector. So whenever there is some fixed type offshore wind turbines have been installed in some locations in the ocean bed, so so due to the application of the pile foundation or the jacket foundation or the tripod kind of foundation based upon the water depth, there are some noise have been generated. So as you can see from the guitar plot, the type of noise generated on the y-axis, there are some values on the decibel, and based upon the diameter of the monopiles or the jacket or the tripod type foundation, the amount of noise generated along the or we can say acoustic noise underwater. So this study here, the reducing the uncertainty in underwater noise assessment, has shown some effect. What are the noise effect on the marine mammals? It is because the ocean bed is habitat to so many marine habitants. So it can be from some living organism and some non-living organisms, as you can see here in the in the picture. So on underwater installation, or even though if it's in floating, there might be some risk of collision between the marine habitants along with the devices installed in the ocean bed. So there is a proper risk of collision, even though if it's a wave energy converter or tidal device or any kind of ocean energy devices. And then the underwater noise due to the movement of the different components of this critical or complicated structure, such as uh, when the mooring cables are suspended and the buoy is moving, or when the tidal devices are rotating. So there might be some kind of noise due to which that affect the habitat behavior around the place where it has been installed. And then the artificial reef effects, which have been particularly come into picture in order to accommodate the growth of some different type of aquaculture. So they have also some kind of effect. And now the electromagnetic fields, which are generated due to the dynamic cables, when they are connected to the onshore or when they are connected to some of the offshore substations. Now, these are some of the risk or the challenges uh, that happen when we talk about installing the offshore wind or offshore renewable energy. Now, in order to minimize those effects, Maritime Spatial Planning (MSP) has been introduced. So MSP Direct has been introduced in 2015 and 2016, which have been adopted by 70 different countries so far now. So MSP is an example where the sea states or the sea area has been made into different zones for the economic benefit and the ecological benefit, as long as for the administration benefit. So here in one of the example, you can see for the sea area has been divided into some of the boundary lines, which are dedicated for aquaculture and then offshore renewables energy for the shipping channel. So this is basically done in order to reduce the conflict in order to reduce the conflict and increase the coherence between the different zones. So this is one of the important thing when you come to installation for identifying the different zone and keep track and growth faster for the renewable energy. Now, there are some other barriers for the development of offshore renewable energy. So starting from the stakeholder engagement. So here I will possibly talk about the policy framework and the consenting process, but there are still other challenges such as stakeholder engagement where the people living in the coastal region, they have the resistance to accept the new technology because of the visibility accept, or because if the people are doing some kind of fishing, they have their own problem and then less knowledge about the community benefits. Other challenges are the economic challenges. So these are lack of financing institution that are the bigger barrier for the development of the offshore renewable energy, and also the long payback period. In addition to that, there is technical challenges such as inadequate infrastructure and lack of data. Such as before installing the wave energy converters. So there should be some cumulative impact analysis has been done. Such lack of data and inadequate infrastructure such as port facility or the onshore facility and the high risk. So these are some of the barriers, but the main barriers which I am going to talk about today is the policy framework and the consenting process, which have been identified as some of the non-technical barriers, but is very important to safeguard the environment and also to reach the carbon emission goal. Now, before going into the comparison, I will like to highlight few things. So there is a model which have been identified in many different countries. So it's called either centralized or decentralized hybrid model. So at the end of the comparison, it is there, but I would like to highlight here. So in the centralized system, the central government set national target and feed-in tariff. So uh, here the central government has to follow the MSP, and then they decide the auction process and the feed-in tariff in order to achieve the goal. But in the centralized hybrid system, the provincial government and the central government has different approaches and target. So this has been identified from the development occur in the offshore renewable energy sector in China. So the ocean energy now in the year 20 to 2030 is still at the research development level with low TRL, but the offshore wind, it has gone to a commercialized position. For the fixed one, the floating one is still at the R&D level. So the target is 2050. So that's why the road is still quite bumpy in order to achieve the goal. But in some way, making a good comparison and finding out the recommendation from the policy concept, uh, developing a robust policy is very important. Now, there are some international case study which I have gone through. So we'll start from United Kingdom and then Denmark, France, Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, Ireland, USA, and two Asian countries, that is Japan and China. So a direct comparison is made between China and Japan. So we'll start with United Kingdom. So here I have just highlighted the England. I have skipped over the Wales and the Scotland. So in United Kingdom, if there is 100 megawatt capacity, under 100 megawatt, and over 1000 megawatt capacity, so almost the required license is common. That is, two of the required licenses are common. That is Marine license and the seabed license. Along with that, if the power production is less than 100 megawatt, uh, under 100 megawatt, then the Electricity Act license is needed. And in the case of 100 megawatt over capacity, another license is required, that is development consent order. Now, the point of contact for England under 100 megawatt capacity, there is 2 point of contact. One is Marine Management Organization for the marine license, and the Crown Estate that provides the seabed lease. Similarly, for over 100 megawatt capacity, it has 2 point of contact. So one is the Planning Inspectorate for the DCO and the Crown Estate that provides the seabed lease. However, there is no dedicated consenting process is done so far for the wave energy converters. Now, this can be very difficult, but there might be some future process in it. Now, coming back to Denmark. So in the Denmark, there is a point of contact. So it is called the Danish Energy Agency. So the Danish Energy Agency is called the single point of contact. So the Danish Energy provides all the kind of required licenses, such as the environmental impact license, license to conduct preliminary research, the license to build wind farm, and so on. So the developer, they reach out to the Danish Energy Agency and they apply their consenting process at the DEA, and the DEA reach out to all the authority that are the stakeholders and provide all the kinds of consenting process. Now, in the UK process, the consenting process basically takes 3 to 4 hours, 3 years to 4 years at a minimum. But in the Denmark, it is a bit faster because they have identified the single point of contact, which is the 1 point stop. So it basically take 1 to 2 years of providing all the consenting process if everything goes well. And then we come across France. So in France also, there is not a single point of contact. So they don't have a one-stop shop like Denmark. The different point of contact are the CRE and the national ministries. And the required license are environmental impact license, and then license to occupy maritime public domain for project located in territorial seas, grid connection agreement, and authorization to generate electricity from commercial farms above 1000 megawatt. So after the comparison, we'll get to know like what are the difference between the single point of contact and multiple point of contact, and how many licenses are common in all the countries. So mostly environmental impact analysis is common in most of the country, and they have identified it is as one of the very important license. Now, after France, we come across the Germany. So there is a direct comparison made between Germany and Belgium, where in Germany, also a single point of contact has been identified, that is BSH, which is the ministry, which is a federal, which is under the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. So as I said, the required license are very less. So where there is single point of contact, in Germany, environmental impact analysis and the construction operation of wind farm, just two required license is needed. Even though Germany borders has two seas, it has developed a very strong and robust policy framework in order to achieve the goal. So Germany by 2045 is expecting to arrive the net zero emission with their single point development of single point of contact, and the number of and the streamlined process of getting the license. Similarly, for the Belgium, there is single point of contact, also known as the one-stop shop, which is the MUMM, Management Unit of North Sea Mathematical Models. And similarly, the required number of licenses are very less, that is 3, environmental impact analysis, application for the laying of the cables, and the wind farm operation permit. Now, they both have the MSP for the German and Belgium together with the ocean energy, but there is no specific place has been identified the ocean energy. It is embedded like where the offshore wind energy is there. So there might be some dedicated place which will come in near future. And then we come to Netherlands and Ireland. So in the Netherlands and the Ireland has made recent progress in 2021 by developing the single point of contact, which is called the MARA, Maritime Area Regulatory Authority. So all the developers, they reach out to MARA, and MARA provides the licenses. So one is the environmental impact analysis and the maritime area consent. So the maritime area consent gives the consent from all the different stakeholders. And then there is the ORE development permission. So Ireland has been adopting and trying to streamline the the policy in order to achieve the sustainable goal, such as Netherlands is also developed a single point of contact, which is the RBO, and they have 4 different license, that is water license, EIA, navigation permit, and environmental license to safeguard the nature. So they have 4 number of license. And now we come across the United States of America. So USA doesn't have a single point of contact. It has 3 different point of contact, and the required license are 3. So it takes a lot of time in order to get the installation or the or the all the consent. USA has a decentralized MSP. So as I said in my previous slide, the decentralized MSP is where the different state have different policy, and different state they try to achieve their goal by means of a competition, which has already been seen in China. So another comparison is Japan, where there is no single point of contact. So they have different point of contact, and then they have required license, 3 different required license. So Japan is at the very beginning of identifying the MSP. They have identified some zone which are known as promotion zone, promising zone, and the preparation zone. So as per my investigation, it's not very streamlined so far, and Japan is still evolving its MSP, which is very dynamic. And then coming to China, so China has 2 point of contact while doing the ocean energy development, and they have at least 4 number of required license. They have identified the decentralized hybrid approach, and they have the MSP, which is better than Japan. When we make a direct comparison between China and Japan, so China has evolved because of the decentralized hybrid approach, because they have the eastern and southern coast area identified as the wind, particularly good for the offshore wind resource, which might be possible for other countries. Now, if you do the direct comparison, so one-stop shop, as I said, there is a single point of contact. Here, Denmark, Germany has identified it, China has it, but UK, Japan, USA doesn't have it. Now, open door versus MSP, most of them has identified the MSP, except Germany. Germany still has the MSP. MSP, it means like specified area identified within the maritime spatial planning. And also they are coming up with the open door system, where the developer can identify one place for themselves and then come to get the license and apply for the environmental impact assessment. Now, project development envelope, which is there in all of the country, but the statutory guidelines has not been included in any of the policy. So this has to be included in the policy. So the need for design flexibility. So just to give a short idea about the design flexibility, it's basically kind of range we provide when we apply for the development. It is needed because the MSP is still evolving at a different state, and based upon the technology, types of mooring, and size of the device, we need to provide some kind of design flexibility. And then the conclusion is open door system has been discontinued in most countries except Germany. The policy framework needed amendments incorporating the project design envelope. Yeah, thank you. I think I just crossed my time.
Thank you very much, Amelia. Much appreciated. Yes, we're running a bit late, I would say. So I would just remind everyone that we taking the question at the end of the seminar. So please type your question into the Q&A so we can read them out and then answer them later. Okay, this brings us to the second speaker, what is Abby McLean. Abby talks about consenting for the WEDUSEA project and EMEC perspective. So Abby, over to you.
Hello, yes, hi, I'm Abby McLean. I'm the Environment and Consents Officer at EMEC. I'm going to be doing a presentation with my colleague Millie Green, who's the Environmental Coordinator. And I'm going to be taking the first part, which is on consents and licensing. A bit about EMEC before I go into the consents. EMEC is an open sea testing facility for marine renewable energy devices, and it was created to help deliver a new sustainable industry within Europe. It was established in 2003 with EMEC function as an accredited independent test lab. It started as a 36 million public funding, not for profit. And these 7 partners here were all included. But now EMEC is self-sufficient as of 2011 due to some heightened activity on the site around that time. So the vision of EMEC is to pioneer the transition to a clean energy future. And our mission is, as an innovation catalyst, we will grow our know-how, services and infrastructure to reduce the time, cost and risk to progress innovative, sustainable technologies to market. As of today, we have over 35 devices, 22 developers from 11 different countries who have came to EMEC. So we have over a decade of experience attracting developers from around the globe to prove what's achievable in some of the harshest marine environments that we see up here in Orkney. Now, on to consents. The big question is why? And that is because licensing is an important way of monitoring and protecting all of the activities which take place within Scotland's marine environments. That's especially so with the new NMP2 coming up, which is the National Marine Plan, and the growing activities that are happening within the marine environments. So we need to facilitate adherence to international, UK and Scottish legislation, helps to ensure the policies within marine plans are adhered to, and it supports coexistence with different sea users with a focus on the environment too. However, there's still quite a long way to go in the sense of what consent processes are within different industries. That can be attained from the kind of lack of knowledge, evidence gaps, etc., that Amaya was talking about before. So there's a bit of different consents here in Scotland. One is the Section 36 consent, which is needed for over 1 megawatt of generation. EMEC actually has its own Section 36 in place for its sites at Billiacrew and Fall of Warness sites. And this is just to make it easier for developers. It streamlined the consenting process so they don't have to worry about that side of things. The main kind of license we deal with developers, so within the WEDUSEA project, is marine license. And these are needed for any kind of deposits in the marine environment, which includes any kind of scientific surveys, with some exemptions attached. But for our work, a marine license is usually needed. There's also a work license, which is required if you're undertaking works within the boundaries of a harbour jurisdiction, as well as the EPS license and bask and shark license, which would be needed if you think you would be causing an offence by disturbing, killing or interfering with any kind of European protected species or basking sharks in the area. Additionally, if there was going to be any sort of land works going on, you would need to get planning permission from the local authority, which in our case would be Orkney Islands Council, but we've not needed that for WEDUSEA. There's also some designations or designated sites, and this goes in with national legislation with sites of special scientific interests and national nature reserves. There's also the European Union directives of special areas of conservation, as well as special protected areas. Although we are not in the EU now, we still follow the kind of habitats directives within our policies. So we still have those. And there's also some global agreements like Rambler sites and marine protected areas, which can be marine conservation zones or nature conservation marine protected areas. So we have a lot of different sites and consents, but there is one regulator who kind of deals with the consent application themselves, and that is Marine Directorate, or Marine, it used to be Marine Scotland, hence the logo there. And they act as that one-stop shop, which has been highlighted already, which facilitates that simultaneous processing of applications, as well as kind of simpler stakeholders consultations as well. They take the lead on that to begin with. But the consultees we might hear from, we've got statutory ones and non-statutory ones. So Nature Scot, MCA, NLB and SFF are usually the ones who would reply to the Marine Directorate with any sorts of comments or anything they think might have been missed within the application at the start. But if there was some sort of, say, marine pollution, for example, was a big concern for the Scottish Environmental Protection Agency, they might comment then. However, we've not had any of that yet. There's also the Crown Estate Scotland, who we lease the seabed off of, similar to England as highlighted by Amaya. But there's also non-statutory consultees and a long list there that might also comment on any sort of application we put through. So as the WEDUSEA site is on our Billy-a-Crew site, it's a full-scale site which the consenting process can be time-consuming and cost-intensive. So we have what's called a project envelope of developments and activities that can be placed at Billy-a-Crew. And this is just to streamline the processes for project-specific consents. If the devices, themselves fall within that project, the consenting process is a lot more smoother, although it can take a few weeks for review of any kind of documents before being submitted as an application to MD Lot, who will then have an average time of about 14 weeks, although we tend to try and get it simplified down to 8 weeks if they can. So this is an example of our project envelope here. We have different kind of parameters, which is in design, device, electrical hub, mooring, and it's all about making sure that we have a realistic envelope which allows us to simplify the consenting process as smoothly as possible, whilst also still maintaining good environmental stewardship and making sure that we're thinking of other marine users as well. So the supporting documentation that would go with an application for a marine licence is the project information summary and the project-specific environmental monitoring programme, the project-specific navigational risk assessment, a decommissioning programme and third-party verification. Because we already have that section 36 in place, developers and projects don't need to really worry about the site-wide aspects of the environmental appraisal and assessment or the site-wide navigational risk assessment. They just need to make sure that their project adheres to what's in there. And if there's anything that's additional, they may need to do additional appraisal, but with the simplified process, it's usually quite quick. But a project information summary is just your company and technology background. You might get a description of the mooring system, the components used, the schedule of the works, as well as the location and how you're going to deposit and remove that device from the water. We use this project information summary as a sort of informal pre-application consultation. So we might talk to MD Lot, for example, on what they think should be added in as part of their regulations. And then we move on to what's called a Project Environmental Monitoring Plan, or PEMP for short. And that's a device-specific environmental assessment. So we're identifying the key impact pathways that that device might impact. And it's any mitigation, monitoring and management measures that will be adopted, as well as that survey, deploy and monitoring policy that we've seen in Scotland. But we essentially want to make sure that any sort of receptors that we can think of, whether that be marine mammals or the benthic seabed, we want to make sure that all of the impact pathways are suitably mitigated, or there's some sort of monitoring strategy for the device itself on these receptors. Next one is navigational risk assessment. We've recently updated our site-wide navigational risk assessment, which goes over kind of stakeholder engagement, vessel traffic analysis, reassessment of risks, identification of new mitigations, and the cumulative effects of both devices coming onto site and what we can foresee with other sea users. And this is also compliant with the Notice MGN 654 and includes the whole kind of extended area of Billia Crew, so it's suitable for the WEDUSEA project. And then with project navigational risk assessments, it'll be device specific. So the device coming onto site with the WEDUSEA will identify the key risks and any kind of proposed mitigation, such as lighting on the device itself, or notice to mariners, which will happen when works commence. Charting, we will let UKHO know that whereabout the device is and whereabouts on the seabed it sits, and any sort of emergency response procedures, such as if the device is to be released off its moorings unexpectedly or something like that. And then we have the decommissioning programme, which is relatively recent in terms of MD LOTS requirements. It's came a lot later than the other sort of documentation, but it's a description basically of the items that are to be decommissioned, so taken out of the seabed, including any sort of waste management that might need to happen, such as recycling any of the device materials or properly disposing of that with certified disposal or companies. We've also got the usage of the vessels, what sort of seabed clearance will happen, because the MD lot would really like the seabed to be returned to its original state, or as practicable as reasonably possible, as well as making sure it's clear for other sea users. So we've got that, as well as the costs and the schedule as well of the actual decommissioning activities. So third-party verification is really important as well. It's an assessment of structural integrity for the device and its mooring systems, and they need to be certified to DNV or BV standards. It's site-specific conditions, so it'll be assessed on how well the device would do out in Billia Crew, and how the device would react to a loss of station event, and any sort of sufficient lifting points or design risk assessments needed for the device itself on Billia Crew. With the application itself, we take a Rochdale envelope approach, so it's your likely scenario / your worst case scenario, and taking into account any sort of uncertainties in the project design. So we'll regularly apply contingency. Usually that's 20% contingencies on any deposits within the marine environment and 50% contingency on project schedules, just so there's some sort of flexibility within there if there's delays, etc., within the actual project itself.
Abby, 3 minutes,
Yep.
please.
Yep. So yeah, we've got the timescales as a statutory determination period of 14 weeks. That includes a 28-day consultation with statutory consultees, so like Nature, Scott, MCA, NLB. They may request an extension to that, which MD-LOT may grant, but that is the average time. And then that proportional approach of 2 weeks from the application acceptance to consultation, 4 weeks for consultation, and then 2 weeks for processing and development of the licence is what we aim for. And these are just some of the licensing fees you can see. So quite, not also just a time-consuming process, but quite an expensive one with the more money that the project needs. And we have some conditions, which are 4 sets of conditions for each phase of the deployment that will need to be moved before moving on to the next stage. So you would need to undergo the general conditions before you go to the prior to deployment, before during deployment, before upon completion in terms of the conditions set. And these are all to do with mitigation, monitoring and management. They will be under review between EMEC and the developer just to make sure that everyone's okay with it, and then they are signed off, and which is required before any sort of pre-installation goes. A license can be revoked if there is a change in circumstances relating to the environment or human health, or there's increased scientific knowledge relating to the above, or in the interests of safety of navigation. But I didn't want to end on a scary note, so I wanted to just mention that the beginning of what's possible is what consenting essentially is. Without consenting, you're not going to get your project in the water, but once you've got consenting, you can go towards, for WEDUSEA specifically, its 3 goals there, as in demonstrating that wave technology is on cost reduction trajectory, boosting the development of the wave energy industry worldwide, and estimating results and outcomes which enable the capitalisation and exploitation of the results. So I will just pass on to Millie now, who will go over the environmental monitoring.
Okay, thanks, Millie. Over to you.
Thank you, Abby. So Abby, can you go on to the next slide, please? So I'm just going to go over the environmental monitoring plan that helps support with what Abby's just been talking about, and specifically for WEDUSEA. What we're aiming to do with the monitoring plan is to reduce those evidence gaps that we've got at the minute with the uncertainty around the interaction of the wave energy converted with species that are in the habitat. So the monitoring plan looks to kind of inform uncertainties and help us to then be able to prove that we're able to sort of scale up from single device to array scale. Next slide, please. So just to identify some of the challenges within this work. So as I said, there's a lot of scientific uncertainty as wave energy technologies are very new, and that sort of interaction with marine mammals, birds, fish is quite unknown. And so we're just trying to overcome that within the monitoring plan. There's also sort of technical and operational challenges of working offshore, and then the sort of lack of evidence and a little bit of a precautionary approach to consenting generally. So it means we have to collect a lot of data just to try and, as I say, bridge that gap. Just click on just a couple of times, please. And again. Thanks. So in terms of the requirements then, so we're trying to improve our monitoring in harsh environments. So that's trying to get successful data within an environment that's obviously made for harnessing wave energy. So we know that it's already quite a harsh environment from the waves. We need to make sure that our data sets are robust and actually meaningful. So you get this, you can get data that's kind of information poor, but data rich. So that we kind of need to balance that as well. And we get very large data sets from our monitoring. And then, as Abby mentioned, improving accessibility to data sets, so being able to share them and also share them with regulators and stakeholders as well. So that's kind of led to our sort of objectives of gathering that comprehensive environmental data set, disseminating our results through the available databases, and trying to provide that certainty for regulators so that we can move the industry on. Next slide, please. So in terms of this project, we kind of looked at the potential stressors and receptors. So stressors being anything that could cause an impact to a marine mammal or fish or bird species, and then the receptors being the species themselves. So we identified underwater noise, as was mentioned earlier, as a key challenge, possibly within the range of sort of marine mammals' hearing ranges. But there's also an airborne noise component as well. So the turbine has an above sea component which is capable of producing noise. So something we need to think about for seabirds and as well. Then there's also that effect that was mentioned about fish aggregating near devices. So it could act as a sort of shelter for fish. How does that, is that true? What's that impact, that knock-on effect on the sort of predator and prey relationships? Providing a resting platform for seabirds. We've seen this, birds using devices as nesting spaces, but then, you know, what effects does that have as well? And is that changing any of their behavior because we're adding a new structure to the environment? Local displacement, so it could have the opposite effect as well, so it could scare some species away. And then it could also have those effects on the wave energy itself, as the device is taking out wave energy from the environment. That has knock-on impacts on the environment, positive or negative. So as I say, we're trying to look at all of these four components on the right to understand the whole impact of the device. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to run through the ways that we're looking at this, and which is detailed out in our environmental monitoring plan. So the first section being on noise and underwater noise specifically. So we need to kind of characterize the noise from the device, but we can also use underwater hydrophones to also look at the marine mammal vocalizations in the area as well. So we're looking at doing both in one, deploying hydrophones on a seabed frame, 3 on one frame, and we're doing 3 frames, so 9 sort of hydrophones in total, at fixed locations from the device, and following the IEC-40 standards, which are for characterizing marine energy devices noise impact. And so these will help us kind of mostly understand the acoustic output of the device and understand where, you know, is there a correlation between the wave height or, you know, sort of energy with the acoustic output and so on. And also we'll be able to pick up within that range marine mammal vocalization. So if we see this layout here, so the fixed platform 3 is kind of a control, which will be away from the site and less likely to pick up noises from the device. Are we hearing marine mammals on this one, or are we hearing them close as well? Are they coming near to the device, or are they moving away? Or that's the sort of thing we'll be able to understand with various numbers of hydrophones. Next slide, please. The next one is airborne sound. So that's that sound from the device above the water, as I mentioned. So this is a bit more simple campaign with a microphone, but it records quite a lot of information. So we'll have various microphone campaigns, and we've got an option to do a vessel-based campaign. So this is where we'll go out on a boat and use the microphone to record the sounds. And this is mostly suitable for sort of that summer period with the better weather conditions, as during the winter time you really don't want to be out on site on a boat. So we've got an option for that, because we expect that could be a louder noise level during the winter times. So we've got an option to put it in the microphone in the container that is suitably rated to be able to handle the weather and so on, and water ingress and such. So we've got those 2 options there to understand that noise impact from the above water systems. And that this at the bottom right there is just kind of an example of what the data can look like from some tests we did with the microphone. So lots of information you can get out from that. Next slide, please. So the next one is sort of those biophysical interactions. So largely we're looking for fish interactions in the area. So what we're going to trial for our first time at EMEC is using ADCPs with an echo sounder functionality. So at EMEC we're used to using this bit of equipment called an ADCP, which measures currents, current speeds, and it can also measure wave height, I believe, as well. So there's also a functionality that's becoming more common in these devices, which is an echo sounder that can also track sort of targets in the water column, which we're looking for fish in this case. And we're trying to understand how the fish are moving around the device. So we can deploy sort of a couple of these at a time and try and look at differences near to the device and then further away. So are they using it as that shelter? And this is one of the ways that we can understand that. And then that kind of has knock-on impacts on the sort of predator-prey relationships as well. So we're trying to understand that bigger picture here. And this is just the kind of middle picture there is what some of the data can look like from the campaign. So this is mounted on the seabed, looking up the water column. Next slide, please. And then another one of the final ones is the drone surveys. So drone surveys are becoming more common in environmental monitoring, and in our case we're using it to look at seabirds. So as I mentioned, the seabirds could potentially be nesting on the device, and if there is increased fish numbers, they could be foraging around the device. So that's the sort of thing we want to understand. So we're looking at developing a survey method which is sort of compliant and aiming to limit disturbance of seabirds. Technically it's often over 50 meters away from the seabirds, and we're looking to look at above the colonies and down onto the sea surface. And so we'll also alternate these between breeding and non-breeding seasons to get that understanding, because we expect numbers to be higher obviously in breeding seasons. And the way we're wanting to do this is sort of fixed point surveys. So you can also do transects, but I think those fixed point surveys will be able to collect photo and video data, which we can analyze to look for those behavioral patterns and where the birds are sort of located around the site as well over time. And we'll just need to, we're looking at using a vessel-based campaign for this, but there's possibly an option to do this on shore as well, but it just depends on battery life and weather and such. So a few options there. And final slide, I believe. So all of this does sound like a lot of data and a lot to manage. And that is generally the case for trying to prove that concept of, is my device having an impact on the marine mammals and animals living in the area, just because there's so much unknown about it. So it means just developing a really strong data management plan and sort of identifying where we need to keep the raw data and where we can have like sort of management strategies where we sort of collect the raw data and then we can sort of get rid of it if we have too much, or when the sort of management is set up. We obviously don't want to without losing sort of the pieces. The next stage from that is sort of the analysis and so on, and then capturing the lessons learned. So we expect there'll be a lot from our side learning on these deployments, and for the developers as well. So it's just about making sure that that information is shared, and we want to help the industry as well. So really important for us. The reports will be produced throughout the project. So there'll be a series of reports based on all the monitoring that we're doing. And we're looking to compare our environmental data to the sort of meta-ocean data of like understanding patterns and behavior around the device, but also with the weather and with the time of day and things like that, so that we're covering various sort of grounds there and understanding the full picture. And then, as Abby was mentioning, this is going to sort of feed into the consents and licensing to support the sector further. So that's me, but thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Millie, but of course also to Abby and Amia for the presentations. I don't see any further questions. I think there was one question, but Lisa, you answered this already, I see. So I haven't seen any further questions.
There is one question. I just copied it into the Q&A. I didn't answer it.
Okay.
The question is around decommissioning. I think this is in relation to Abby's talk, talking about decommissioning costs. So these costs could occur any time in the next 30 to 50 years. So do you require any form of third-party bond to secure these costs?
That's a good question. So us ourselves as EMEC, we won't take the decommissioning costs. MD Lot will lead them. And that side of things, because they're sort of financial information and stuff, they tend to work directly with the developer. I'm thinking for short-term kind of projects or pre-commercial projects, I think they like their fee like kind of upfront pre-deployment, but if there's anything, say like contracts for difference and things like that, and they might be a bit long term, then it would be a sort of cash bond or like a crew sort of like account that would need to have some amount of money in it, whether that be at the start of the project or mid-project. They would kind of discuss that or decide based on the actual project specifics itself.
Okay, thanks. With the absence of any further question, maybe Millie, question to you. So have you already started the baseline monitoring there in terms of noise?
So at EMEC, we have some baseline surveys that were carried out previously, but we can use that as a comparison, and we've had sort of campaigns when we set up the site, but also further down the line, which is really good, useful for this project. We'll also have during the campaign that element of control, a control hydrophone survey that's sort of further away from the site, which will act as an additional baseline-ish within the area. So we expect, the we expect it to be a robust, sort of reliable methods as we're sort of following the IEC standards. So yeah.
Okay. Yes. Thanks. And maybe a quick follow-up on this one. So you mentioned, I think, so you want to have the airborne noise measurements done by a vessel. So why do you not install it on the WEC itself?
Yeah, but we've got both campaigns. So we'll have the vessel-based largely just for the sort of fair weather months, and the onboard for the winter months. It's just sort of also to help with getting that distance from the device as well. So if you've got it on board, you're going to be quite close to the sound source, but then you also want to see how it is further away as well. Luckily, there's not so much residential area to kind of have the noise impact on local residents, but it could be impacting sort of seabirds and so on. So we'll kind of get those both different types of data. And
you mentioned the land-based as well, so you have another data point there as well, I guess, from the land-based ones in there.
Yeah, it's an extra option if we need to. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot. If we have no further question, then I will pass over to Lisa to maybe wrap up and to inform what happens next.
Yes, thank you very much to all our speakers, to Amaya, Abby and Millie, and to Lars for chairing the meeting. That was really informative. As we've said at the beginning, we will review the webinar, and a copy of it will be put on our website in the coming weeks. So look out for that. And if you have any further questions, you can contact myself, and I can direct you to the correct person or organisation to answer. Okay, thank you very much for your time today. And we'll speak to you all soon. Bye-bye.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.